There has been a highly unusual drama playing out in Ontario's Flower City. The mayor of Brampton has been championing a $300 million light rail transit line. But the majority on her council didn't like the proposed route and voted against it. Even worse, a much beloved former premier was part of a group cheering on that opposition. It's not at all what Brampton Mayor Linda Jeffrey was expecting when she left a cabinet job at Queen's Park to move into municipal politics. Let's find out if this truly is the end of the public transit plan for Brampton. And with that, we welcome Mayor Linda Jeffrey. Your Worship, good to have you here.
Nice to be back.
Be comfortable for a second because we're going to show a couple of maps first. This is what you had hoped to achieve. Sheldon, if you would, bring this up. This is the LRT, which starts south of this picture, actually, on Hurontario Street in Mississauga, goes up Main Street in Brampton, and would have concluded at the Brampton GO station there at the top of the map. 23 kilometers in total, little over 5.5 kilometers of it in Brampton itself. However, council didn't want that, at least the majority didn't. And so here's what the plan is now. Once again, up Hurontario Street, up Main, hit Steeles, bang, that's it. $300 million from the province to build the Brampton leg of this. Not going to happen now, apparently. Let's get into this. Some of the background. Why do you think Brampton City Council, or at least the majority of its members, voted against the route that you wanted?
I think it's complicated. There isn't one answer. I inherited a fractious council. We had a big change in that 11 members of council, 7 are new, and I'm considered one of the new people. The 4 that came back had worked on these routes. I think they've been working on it since 2007. And they were of the opinion it should never come into the downtown. That was before the province of Ontario offered 100% of the funding and the operational dollars. I felt the new council should consider those dollars, should consider how to integrate it into our downtown, how to revitalize our city. And I also think that it should be tied to other conversations we're having, which is to do with bringing a university. And we have many partners who want an urban setting. So I thought that it made sense for us to talk about it. We got the announcement in April. We have been talking about it for the last 6 months, and essentially 5+1 decided we weren't going to have it come to our downtown.
So there were 5+1, so 6. So there's
I'm
you.
The 5. I'm
right.
the 5 yeses, and then there were 6 noes.
There's five yeses on council. There was also Metrolinx, which has authority across the region to plan. They liked your route. The province of Ontario liked your route, and apparently, no, the majority council didn't want a free LRT. How come?
Well, I would say it wasn't my route. It was the route that transit planners and experts said was the best, most cost-efficient, the best route to connect other routes. My existing council wants to support Queen Street, which is the street that runs east-west at the top.
Let's bring the map up again. Sheldon, bring the map up just so we can see the route perfectly. You'll see it will go up Main Street, and then there's Queen at the top.
Yeah, and Queen Street is at kind of in the top part of your frame there.
Right.
That's the east-west route that many of my council want, but I didn't want to stop it there. This would have been a spine for the beginning of other increased routes. We could go right to the borders of Brampton, right up to Caledon. We could do another east-west route for Beauvais Drive or Sandalwood Parkway or any of these other east-west routes where there's a lot of traffic. So this was just the beginning of the spine, and my council decided they didn't want the spine.
You were in Dalton McGuinty's cabinet with Kathleen Wynne when she was a minister in that cabinet. So you know her well. Has she given you any indication, or have you had any conversations with her yet, which suggest this may not be dead, it just may be dead for now?
I haven't talked to the Premier about this particular issue. I think I chatted with her a few months ago, or I saw her at an event, and she patted my shoulder, you know, kind of comfortingly, said, "You seem to have a lot on your plate right now in the city of Brampton," which is true. I've had more conversations with Minister Del Duca, Transportation Minister, and many, many conversations with Metrolinx. And I have to say, the Minister of Transportation, he bent over backwards. He was very accommodating to my council, as was Metrolinx. I couldn't have asked them to be more flexible.
Meaning they are open to a new route?
No, the money is gone. You know, at the end of the day, the deadline was the end of October. We had a meeting in July, a very contentious meeting in our city hall, and hundreds of people showed up, and council deferred the decision, which is what councils do when they're afraid or they don't have enough information. Nothing wrong with doing that. You need to make a good informed decision. But unfortunately, We moved it to the very last date. We put it in a larger venue so more people could participate. I think we had 60 delegations.
What time? It went till like 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning.
2 in the morning.
It was a very long night, but I couldn't have been more proud of my residents. They spoke eloquently, thoughtfully. They created videos. They looked at the information and all the statistics. They evaluated it. They were critical. They offered suggestions. They really upped their game. I've never seen citizen engagement like I saw then.
Clearly, though, most people still want some kind of public transit to come to Brampton.
Yes.
The disagreement here is over where it ought to be built.
Yes.
Is there really no compromise to be had here, or no middle ground you guys can agree on?
Well, I thought we had some middle ground because we went to a facilitation model, which was also contentious, but we had 3 meetings with a facilitator chosen by the majority of council. And in fact, the person that I thought might switch their vote in the course of facilitation suggested a loop in our downtown would give people, wouldn't disrupt our downtown as much. So that's the motion that was on the floor of the night of the 27th. There was a motion to put a loop in that would have gone up north to the sea.
Let's bring the map up again, just so we...
Through the middle of our city.
A lot of people watch us who live outside the GTA, and they don't know this area as well. So, okay, up Main Street
so
and...
it had gone up to our GO station, where it says Brampton GO, and it would have looped down a street to the left of it, parallel, coming down and connecting to the original route going up. That's all. It would have been part of a mobility hub. It would have connected our GO station, the light rapid transit, our bus, our Zoom system. It would have really made our downtown a very bustling, exciting place. I know businesses that were planning to invest and grow their employment base.
And that failed too.
That failed too.
That motion
Surprisingly, the person who brought it up during facilitation didn't want to vote for it.
Okay, so that plan's dead. The $300 million that was set aside for that plan is now back at the province, and you don't have...
back to the Treasury.
It's back in the Treasury. You don't have access to that.
No.
So what do you do now?
Well, I have to move on, and I have to find other ways to bring transit to my city. It's a city of 600,000 people. We're going to 900,000. We want to attract a university. We're going to be putting in an application this spring, and I guess depending on how big the university presence is, it could be 5,000, it could be 20,000 students coming into somewhere in Brampton. I don't know if it'll be in our downtown, but we have to find a way to maximize transportation needs. Probably two-way all-day go. We've been talking about that relationship. I think the last time I saw you, we were talking about Kitchener-Waterloo Guelph and that innovation corridor. We're going to be spending more on our buses, but certainly I think we have to revisit our transportation master plan. This council doesn't believe that LRT is in its future during this term of council, but I still believe it's the right thing to do.
Do you know the name of the studio we're in right now?
I do.
Well, this is, of course, part of what makes this story so intriguing, is that this studio is named the William G. Davis Studio after the former premier who founded TVO, who's a constituent of yours, obviously. Don't take this the wrong way, but he's probably the most famous guy ever to come out of Brampton.
It's okay, I can live with that, yeah.
And you two used to be big fans of one another. I think he had your lawn sign on his lawn during the last election.
And he wrote a check.
And he wrote a check to your campaign. And you guys have had one of the most public falling outs I can ever remember an ex-premier and a current mayor having. What do you think's going on there?
I think there's lots of things going on. I think there's a lot of people who have different interests rather than transportation in mind. And I think that certainly, you know, it isn't unusual for Mr. Davis and I to lock horns on issues. I think you know him. He likes a good debate. And we've had some debates over the years. We had to agree to disagree on this particular issue. I'm sure that in Mr. Davis's mind, he wants to retain his downtown and doesn't want anything to change. My job is to think about what our city's going to look 10, 20, 30 years out, and I have to be somebody who's mindful of poverty issues. You know, like I represent a lot of people who are on minimum wage, single parents, seniors, students, newcomers to Brampton who can't afford a car, can't afford auto insurance. So I have to think of all of the city and what's in the best interest and how to attract more jobs. This would have really been a game changer for Brampton. And that's how I saw it.
You tell me if I'm reading between the lines here, but there have been some people who have suggested that Mr. Davis doesn't want this line because it runs up Main Street past his home, and he didn't want the disruption in front of his home. He is quick to point out that he's 86 years old, and by the time any construction in front of his home took place, he probably wouldn't even be living there anymore. In fact, he jokingly says he might be up in heaven by then. Or
I'm not sure about heaven.
joking again, he was going to say maybe in...
You might be in a warm place. I think that's where all politicians go.
Let the record show you said that, not me. Anyway, do you think this is NIMBYism on his part?
You know what? I'm not sure it is. I think there are a lot of people in his neighborhood that didn't want this route and were afraid. And I think when I talked to many of his neighbors, a lot of them had never read the reports. Somewhat what I think some of my council didn't read all of their reports. There was no expropriation necessary. Nobody was going to lose access to their driveway. I think they were afraid it was going to be noisy or dirty or you know, there's all those things that people would be afraid of.
But it will be all those things.
No, there was no expropriations required.
No, I mean, it will be noisy.
No, it isn't. If you've ever ridden on an LRT...
No, when they build it, I mean.
Oh, possibly. There's a little bit of construction mess, but it's like that if you renovate your kitchen. I mean, we all want that great kitchen or that great bathroom. There's a little pain in between, but ultimately it's in the best interests of everyone. And I think a lot of people living in Mr. Davis's neighborhood live in very nice homes who never need to take public transit. I have to think about everyone, not just a few people who don't take transit and are never likely to take transit.
You tasked Mr. Davis with chairing a blue ribbon panel whose job it was to try to bring a university to Brampton.
Yes.
Is he still the chair of that?
Yes.
You haven't fired him?
I asked him to do this job because I believe he wants what I do, a post-secondary institution, the best one that we can attract to Brampton. We are on the same page with regards to that. I know he's made many calls and tried to elicit applications from universities in the hopes that we can get one. And I value his input on that file.
Do you, I guess I didn't ask this, did you ask for his resignation?
I think that a few months ago, his son had expressed to me that if I kept linking the LRT with the university, that his father would quit. So I didn't know that he felt that strongly about the issue. So I went to see him, and I said, Mr. Davis, you know, if you feel that strongly and you want to step down, I'm okay with that. So, you know, I said, if you want to resign and because you feel that I've made this too difficult for you, I'm happy to it's not a problem for me. And he said, no, I'm going to stay on and I want to help. And that's where we left it. So.
These are two separate files, public transit and the university.
Yep.
But you are, you know, obviously your relationship has taken a bit of a turn as a result of the LRT business.
Yes.
Do you think you can still work together?
I want to. And I think, you know, if you have an opinion as a private citizen, that's one thing. But if you act on behalf of a group, you need to make sure the group around you feel the same way. And
did they?
I'm not sure they do.
The group on his blue ribbon panel you're talking.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they all feel the same way. So I think just as I, as a mayor, can say, I believe something, I can't speak for my council unless I have a council resolution. And Mr. Davis knows that's the way things work. And I think he's been cagey about what he's told the group. So as you know, he's very good with words.
Well, I would merely observe he didn't last 25 years in politics by being a dummy.
No,
so
he's a smart cookie.
He does know what he's doing.
Yes.
Are you concerned that your relationship has now crossed a certain line whereby you two can't get on the same page and do what's in the best interests of Brampton?
I don't know how it's going to go in the future. What I can say is I was surprised by the letter. I thought it was unfortunate that he made that choice because he did muddy the waters. If he'd spoken as a private citizen, that would have been fair. But the last time we talked about it, he agreed that he wasn't going to be public about his opinion. And I don't think it was the turning point for this debate, but it wasn't helpful.
Wasn't helpful. Let me ask about your mayoralty now, because, you know, as everybody understands, you are the mayor elected citywide, but at the end of the day, you're one vote on council.
Yes, I am.
And you need a working majority of council to get whatever program you have in mind through. Can you still do that?
It is becoming more and more challenging. I have to say the first couple of months were quite productive. Council let me cut my salary by $50,000. We were able to bring in Jim McCarter, the former provincial auditor, to come and look at the books and essentially prove the fact that we were not in as great financial shape as we had been led to believe. We worked on a code of conduct and a gift registry and a lobbyist registry, which I had promised during the election would provide the accountability and transparency that we needed going forward. I would say council's been paralyzed by this LRT conversation and a lawsuit that began probably 5 years ago. These issues are paralyzing this council because we don't seem to be able to move forward. It is challenging, but the one glimmer of light on the horizon that I see is that the Ombudsman is going to come and have a look at land use planning, real estate, and procurement in the city of Brampton, and I welcome their scrutiny.
What do you fear he will find?
She,
excuse me.
She will
I forgot.
find, yes.
Andre Morin is not there anymore.
Yes,
We have a new ombudsman.
But I did
now,
talk with Andre before.
Yeah.
I think there are some very questionable activities in those particular areas. When I was on council back in 1991 to 2003, I knew that things were not as I thought they should be, but I didn't know the difference. Since having been at the province and seen in my last portfolio as Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing how 444 municipalities across Ontario operate, I've seen the best and I've seen others that are not doing things the right way, the transparent way. My city has got some issues. They don't have the policies and procedures that they should have. They don't appear to be following rules the way they should. I'm concerned about auditing methods. When an auditor tells you these are the 3 things you must do in order to protect the corporation, you do them. My council, my former council, didn't follow any of those recommendations since 2013. That's a problem. That provides exposure to my residents and puts us in harm's way.
Do you think there's actual malfeasance going on here?
There are questionable activities. I don't know how far it goes, but I would say this is not normal routine practice to some of the things that are being done. And I would say that there's a lot of land use planning that has been accelerated without the proper planning and public consultation behind it.
Public consultation is one thing. Is there anything illegal happening in Brampton that you want to tell us about tonight?
I think that there are things that I believe are not done in the right way. I don't know if they're illegal, but certainly they deserve a lot of scrutiny.
And they might be illegal?
Yes.
There may be illegalities happening in terms of?
I can't say it's happening right now, but what I can say is when I came into the office, there were things that were going on that were not routine procedures in any municipality. And I guess you could say it was sloppiness or maybe it was intentional. But the Ombudsman is going to come in and help us find tighter, stricter methods of doing our land use planning, procurement, and real estate transactions.
It's one thing to potentially lose the majority control on council if there are 3 months to go until the next election, because elections have a way of clarifying things. But you're 3 years away from the next election. Is this the way it's going to be in Brampton for the next 3 years?
Well, Steve, when I decided to leave the province and go to Brampton, I knew things were bad. And Mr. Davis wasn't the only person who lobbied me. Many, in fact, some councillors at Brampton City Council, who are now actually not voting with me, asked me to come back because they were so concerned. Many of them came to see me when I was the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing and told me of what they thought were wrongdoing themselves. They've now said everything is fine, but I knew things were bad. I just didn't know the extent to how bad they are. We have been without a city manager for a few months now. We're in the process of interviewing. So I think a new city manager will help set the tone, will help the bureaucratic staff do their job properly. But I think there's a very toxic, poisonous atmosphere in City Hall between councillors and between councillors and staff. I've had 5 all-staff meetings in the last month or so, and I've met with groups of my staff in the transit terminal, in our public works yard, and in our Rose Theatre by the hundreds. And I've told them I'm appalled at the way council talks to each other, and more importantly, I'm appalled at the way they talk to staff. So there's a real trust gap between staff and council, and that permeated through the LRT conversation. where staff didn't trust the transit numbers they were given, didn't believe anything that Metrolinx told them. So unless you can build that trust up over time, it won't change. So I am doing my best to shed a light and provide transparency on the issues that we're dealing with. If people don't want to build a better Brampton, that's their choice.
You're kind of calling them out here,
Yes,
rather
I am.
publicly.
I've been talking about this for a while.
Okay, let's finish up on this. You are a former Liberal provincial cabinet minister. Almost every seat provincially in Brampton is Liberal. I think every seat federally is Liberal. You're on a first-name basis with the Premier of Ontario. I don't know how well you know Justin Trudeau, but I presume you know him a little bit. I assume people are going to assume that because you're all in the same red family, you can just make a couple of phone calls and fix all this. Is that how it works?
No. At the end of the day, you need to provide the business case to sell what you're going to do. And I think I'm fortunate that I still have a good relationship with the province of Ontario, and you know, I get along well with everybody. I was at a dinner with the Cardinal down in the Pearson the other day, and there were a whole bunch of Conservative MPPs there and some Liberals. I went and shook hands and hugged all of them. I have a good working relationship with my NDP counterpart, Jagmeet Singh, who is a representative of Brampton as well. As a mayor, you're supposed to work with everybody, no matter what their political affiliation. But I don't expect to get a free ride. I expect to work hard and to earn the trust and to present a strong business case for Brampton. We're a high-growth community. I have one of the youngest populations, the most diverse, the best educated. I think we're in a place to take some investments that the federal or provincial government offers and run with it and build a stronger Ontario. And that's why we're working on rail transit with Kitchener, Waterloo, and Guelph. We're thinking regionally, not in those borders, because the business doesn't look like that, the communities that way. And certainly, I'm very pleased with the federal outcome. It's nice to have some new, fresh faces. And it's nice to know that somebody will take your call. That's good.
Well, Mayor Jeffrey, we thank you for coming, dare I say it again, to the William Davis studio here at TVO.
You had to rub it in.
Just having fun. Seriously, though, good of you to come down here and visit us at TVO tonight. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Linda Jeffrey, the Mayor of Brampton.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.